It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Friday, May 10th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Until the End with Daniel Baker, the Wednesday Message Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? I hope you guys are really happy because the weekend is here. I am so happy. And of course, I'm in Taiwan right now at this moment recording this podcast. Don't forget, every Thursday we have the Q&A. Question and answer. So send those questions, get them ready. Send it to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment for today's podcast. Let's build that community. Let's communicate, talk with each other. Let me know what's going on in your mind. Would love to talk about and discuss these things that you guys are thinking about too. Now, I am super happy, as always, for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is Our Hope is God's Purpose of Creation. All right, so yes, it is Friday. I am super happy, super excited because I am in Taiwan. I'm in Taipei right now. I'm recording this a little bit later in the afternoon. It's actually the evening time. It's around 7 p.m. And from the morning, I left my house around 5:45, went straight to the airport, and then took the flight over here, met my friends, we ate, and then now I'm just settling in the apartment right now. So very, very happy and excited and thankful that God led me safely all the way over here to Taiwan. And yes, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm super happy and thankful for this wireless mic because this has made my life, I would say it has significantly made my life easier. The setup is so small. Right now I'm walking around the house while I'm recording this. I'm just walking around because, before I had that mic where I had to keep, you have to plug it in. This is wireless. I stand around, I walk around, I look at my notes. I can talk to you guys like this. It weighs probably, I think it probably weighs like a 15th of what that mic was heavy. Oh, how'd you guys like it yesterday with Pastor Baker's Sermons in the Sky? That's with his brand new, well, it's not brand new, but his new mic that he's using. I think it sounds awesome. It actually sounds better than this mic right now. But I love this because it is a traveling mic. It's something I can take around with me everywhere I go. It's really light and stuff too. And thank you so much, guys, for your feedback. I think the general consensus is this mic is actually pretty good. There's not a huge dip in the quality of the mic sounds, and I would say one more thing that's what's a little bit better with this smaller mic is it actually drowns out the echo better than the other mic. So the other mic was a little bit more sensitive, so you can catch and you can tell that I'm in like a very echoey place. Right now, I'm not sure if you guys can tell, I'm in a very, very open space. And I can actually hear my echo in this room, but I've checked this mic a couple times, and there's not a lot of echo you're going to hear in the background. So this is what I like about this mic too, is I can walk around. It doesn't have to be super like acoustically, like an acoustically awesome place where all the sound is drowned out. But this is kind of good enough for even places that are not as acoustically good as other places, right? So that's another thing I'm thankful for. Yes, God, I am just very grateful and thankful for our MSD community. Just everything that's happened for MSD. The feedback I get, even when it comes to like, hey, should we go on Palm? Should we do here? Or, what would be a better thing for me here? I'll tell you guys what's going on in my life. And I'm going to tell you that the people who reach out to me, there's people that reach out to me, even if they're not there to if they can physically actually help me, they're there saying, don't worry about it. We're praying for you. We're doing this for you too. So I want to give big shout outs to everyone who's been praying, everyone who looks at the situation and is giving feedback. I think the greatest part of a relationship is the communication. right? Isn't that the best part? The best part of any relationship, like this community we have right now, is the communication. Like, I love it, whether it's good or bad feedback, like, oh, I think this is better, I think that is better, but at least it shows that you care. When I hear the feedback, when I read the comments, the worst thing is, in a relationship is when there's silence, wouldn't you say? Where, you would be like, if you ask a question and no one responded, I think that would be even worse. But here we got everyone speaking up. Some people say too much. Some people say not enough. But ultimately, I do think there's a huge group of people out there in this community that are saying, that are actually responding to these things. And I would say that even speaking too much, I don't even think there's such a thing as that, because just hearing what you guys are thinking, what's in your mind, I think that in itself is really inspiring and moving for me, just to get all the responses from you guys, right? So I just want to bring that out first. You guys are awesome. You guys are, I really feel like this is a community. And, like I would say this is, even when I was in Korea, meeting with other people who listen to MSD and like connecting with others, like, hey, there's like, there's a blessed family from Taiwan in Korea, and they reached out and they want to meet Pastor Baker. I'm with him, like, hey, let's go meet. And we just meet, and it's just a community. And I think this is something that we need kind of at the world level, right? So very grateful, very thankful. And I hope that you guys know out there that, I hope that all of us, we can be a blessing upon each other too. I hope that everyone's looking forward to the weekend, though. I am looking forward to a nice weekend of volleyball. I'll keep you updated on my Instagram of all the things that are happening over there. I don't know how much I'll actually play. I don't know. Because, one thing I don't want to do is, when I was in Korea and I played on the volleyball team, they basically said, I was always a member of, I've always been a member of Whitestone. And me going to that team wasn't a really, really big deal. And the setter was the one that invited me to go, right? So they're like, oh, don't worry about it, because I am the setter. So you guys, basically you can just take my position and I'll focus on defense. So that's something that I appreciated. However, me coming to Taiwan, there's so many people here that have been practicing on their teams. And the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to take someone's spot who's been practicing so much. Like, I understand there, with volleyball tournaments and such, with churches, I do understand that there's a lot of players there. A lot of them are not volleyball players. Some of them are just there because they need more players. But especially the ones that are really serious about volleyball, I still want to take someone's position, right? So, like, even for me, it's like, yeah, if there's a setter already there, then don't worry, right? I don't have to play. This is not really my tournament kind of thing. But they insisted, like, oh, come play with us, do this. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of an old guy. I don't need to play every game. And, when I play, you guys can just put me in when it's like a very easy team or something along that line, so I don't disrupt what's going on with them too. So me, looking forward just being there with all the members, with all the guys. And like I said, I don't know how much I'm going to play, but I'm just excited to be there and to play on a team together. So that's something that I think I do look forward to, and hopefully I can get a double gold medal this year. Interesting conversation I had with Chris Jansen, right? PROVICOM. Hey, Chris, just want to let you know we are all waiting for another PROVICOM to come out. Just want to let you guys know, I want Chris to know that, yes, we're waiting for another PROVICOM. But one thing you guys need to know about Chris is, like, Chris, he's funny, he does PROVICOM, everything else, but you guys need to know, because, I've known him for like over a decade now, probably even more than that. But Chris evangelizes really well. Like, he really, really evangelizes well. So, he's a comedian, but on top of it, he is a great evangelist. Like, I've seen the people he's evangelized. I've helped with the people he's evangelized. A lot of the people he's evangelized already right now, they're doing really, really well, right? So we kind of had an interesting talk on what do you call it? Yeah, online, right? So it's text messaging. And the thing that I thought was, the question he brought up was, he talked about, there is, remember when I talked about having a flagship church, and I talked about like leaders came together, and then we talked, and then we all wanted to do a flagship church. And then he brought up some really, really good points, and they were brought up, like I couldn't give you all the details of what we were talking about, but he said that flagship church, like maybe, does it mean combining churches? Or does it mean people have to move to another church to do a flagship church? Like, what does it mean to build a flagship church, right? And I think that's something that's a very, very interesting point. And I would say that it would depend on, it really, really depends on the direction the churches or the country has already gone through. Are they in the beginning? Are they in the middle, right? Like, what point is the church is in right now in your country, and that will change the strategy of how to make a flagship church. Like if you look at what Sunseem did, when Sunseem first started, he went to Seoul, and because it was the very beginning of history, what did he do? He actually built a flagship church. It was that church in Seoul that kept growing and growing from like 2 people to 10 to 20 to 500 to 1,000 people. And from that one church, many people were sent out, right? So you're looking at what Sunseem did is he did that from the very, very beginning, right? From the very beginning, he went out and he made these churches, right? He made this one church, and from there, it spread out even more. And then what happened eventually in time is Sunseem began to combine churches. What does that actually mean? It means that he actually got rid of some churches, right? So our church, the number of churches shrank even though the amount of people stayed the same. So it's not like the country really shrank. It's more of you got rid of those physical churches and combined them, and you kind of shrunk the country in terms of churches, but not in terms of manpower, right? So if you started from scratch, you could just do it the way Sunseem did. Now, right now, Providence has been around for 45 years. So we have many churches in each country already. And if you were to change your strategy to focus on a flagship church at this point, when you look at a church or a country that has reached this point right now with like multiple churches around the country, whatever it is, to focus on a flagship church does not mean that every person has to move to one church. It doesn't mean that you have to combine churches either. I think that would be quite impossible because people have work, homes, family, everything in different areas too. You can't just pick up and get everyone to move to one area, right? So when you look at this, the thing I'm going to tell you there is when you're in a situation we're in right now, 45 years into history, if we wanted to focus on a flagship church, what does it mean? How would we do it in this type of instance or circumstance? It's more about the resources you have. What are the resources you have right now, right? Where are you going to pool your resources is going to be how you do a flagship church. What does that mean? What is the biggest resource that we all have? And that is manpower. That is your full-timers, the people who are able to move around, the people who are lecturing, the people who are managing, the people who are doing all that like great work. So instead of constantly expanding your country and constantly sending people out, instead you do the opposite and you keep people in, right? Because, the one thing I notice is when a country is being, there's a leadership in a country, which is the headquarters or the head leaders, whatever it is, a lot of times we keep thinking only about spreading out, making it bigger and bigger, right? However, our evangelism isn't that great, which means that you're just taking that same number of people and spreading them more thinner and thinner. Right? And leaders are constantly being sent out, moved around, right? Going to pioneering regions, areas with very few people and such too. Like, let me give you an example of how you would build the flagship church in the situation we have right now. And I'll give you an example of when I was a head leader. So, I was actually Chris Jansen's head leader at one point because he was tied to the New York church. Okay. Now, there was this one point, I believe it was like 2017 or 18. I think it's 2017 maybe. This is the year where we had the greatest explosion of evangelism in 1 year. It was the largest growth by one church in a single year, right? I believe in America at that point. I think we evangelized, we passed 23 people that year. Okay, so that's been the most from what I've heard, right? Someone can correct me about this too, right? Now, what happened was the thing that made it so amazing and awesome, and the thing that made it work really well, is that I was a head leader, but I had two of the best ALs. These assistant leaders were awesome. They were able to meet people. They were to resolve problems. They were awesome. They were so good. Okay? So that year, we're like managing, and I'm preaching, I'm lecturing. All this stuff is going on, and more people are being evangelized. More and more people are passing and stuff like that too, right? And at the end of the year, we had 23 people. Okay? Then what happens? Okay? So at the end of the year, it's like, oh, the New York church, we've evangelized the most people. Oh, the New York church, this and this and this. Okay? And what the country decided to do is they decided to break up our leadership, and they sent our AL to another church. Okay? Now, my real question to you is, does that really sound that bad? Like, this church is doing really, really well. So they have really, really good leaders there. So let's take one of those leaders so that they can lead another church. Okay? And it's true. Some people have that mentality that you shouldn't keep all the good people in one church, but you need to spread the wealth, right? Now, even though that sounds really good, it sounds very fair, but the one thing that you have to realize is if the goal is to grow, if the goal is to become, to grow Providence, doing it this way actually stunts growth. Okay? So if a church is doing well, the team is, working well together, running together like a well-oiled machine. They're doing great things, a lot of evangelism happening. To take a key part of that team out, what's going to happen the next year? That team is going to struggle because they have to cover for that key person who's gone. And you're pretty much guaranteed that next year will not be as good as the year we just had. And that's exactly what happened. It went from 23, and I believe it went back down to like 13. So we went down by 10 people. So then the question is, what's the proper thing to do in this situation? Well, if you're doing well, like let me ask you this question. If you guys had an organization, you had good leaders or whatever it is, or you had a business or anything else, and if someone was awesome, like imagine this person was the best salesperson that you have, right? Would you go and pull off a pharaoh? I'm going to the Exodus Bible history we did this week. Would you do a pharaoh and tell them, well, from now on, no more straw, but I'm going to give you the same quota? Do you think they can meet the quota? And the answer is they can't. So imagine you have the best salesman and you say, oh, from now on, you can't use your phone anymore. But but I still expect you to be the best salesman. So what you're doing instead is, because they did so well, instead of rewarding them, you are punishing them. You're taking something away, so it makes it that much harder. For me, if you really, really want to grow, if things are going well, you shouldn't punish, but you should be rewarding. You should be sending more people, more resources, more funding, whatever it is. That would be the proper thing to do in that situation, is to add, to support more, bring more people to help with the more people that are going to be evangelized so that they can also learn and do better too. To take away is to punish them for doing well, which doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't you want that church to do even better the next year? Oh, you did 23 this year? All right, guys, we're going to support you even more. Let's go for 30 next year. Oh, you guys did 30? All right, next year, guys, let's go for 45. Like, wouldn't that really be the right way to do it? Wouldn't you want the church to break more records, right? That one church, if it continues to be supported, it's going to grow so fast that the numbers for that church, like when it comes to evangelism, will be higher than all the other churches combined together. That's how great it's going to become, right? However, if you take away and in essence punish them for doing well, that church will shrink in evangelism, shrink in growth. It will not get better. The leader that was sent away is used to being in a good dynamic environment that was working well, but now is put in a new different position and environment that he may not be able to replicate it. It actually might be harder for them. So, for me it's like, if we have to understand the leadership plays such a big role, because it can determine whether a church does better or worse. It can determine whether a person does better or worse. Just because someone does really well doesn't mean you punish them and you say that, oh, you've done too well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all the things you've done, I'm going to cut it in half and then give it to other people and stuff like that too. No, that's not how it's supposed to be if we really, really want to grow. That one church, if it's constantly supported and becomes better and better and better, that one church will be the sole reason that Sunsteam calls. Oh, that church is doing well. All right, good. That's the flagship church. Oh yeah, they're doing well. Sunsteam's going to keep sending letters. You're going to keep getting interest from Sunsteam because it's growing and getting better and better all the time, right? So it's something that we have to understand is the point I'm bringing up. I'm bringing up to you guys right now is, like I was saying before, is in one thing I noticed in Providence is always about growth and growth and growth, right? We're talking about how to build a flagship church. And sometimes in this situation that we're in right now, it may not be growth, but it might have to be something like bringing people together, right? I think it's about bringing people together, getting good people to work together and having a great system, right? And that church is going to grow even better. So, I would say that one of the most important things in a church is how good is your team. One of the most important things in any organization, whether it's a church or business or anything, it's about the team. How good is your team? Because that team is going to determine how well the church is going to be led. The team is that important. Good teams take time to gel and work together, work well together. They'll cover for each other. They'll be able to help each other grow in different areas, and they'll make sure everything works well together too. It's really hard to get a great team. It's really hard to have a team that's working like a well-oiled machine to start working well together. But once you get that team, the dynamics and everything is down, it just grows exponentially from that point on. But if you break up a team that just starts to work, it's quite unfortunate because it took so much work just to get to that point. So my point I'm bringing to you guys is, it's the flagship church is not a flagship church. Making a flagship church, it is dependent upon where your country or your churches are at right now. And it's going to be, like I said, like Sunsteam did it from the very beginning, it's very easy because you only have one church and you can focus on it, right? However, in the situation that most churches are in right now, if they really wanted to build a flagship church, it's just about where you pour your resources into, right? So if we're going to do a flagship church, it's not about everyone moving to that church, but the focus will be on that church. Like the people that are running will be sent to that church instead. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how you would do it in that case, because you can't make people move, right? People just can't move, right? So it's something where you can still build it. It's just going to be a little bit different. Now, when I look at Providence and what happened over the last since 2014, it was 2013, 14 where churches, no, even before that, it was like 2010. 2010 and 11 is where the Lord's Church first began, and like 3 or 4 churches came together, and Sunsteam began to kind of change strategy. And I think it's something that we have to really think about. Sunsteam wasn't someone who was looking constantly to keep sending people out, right? In the very beginning, the complete focus was that one church in Seoul, and that grew, and then it spread out. And then from 2010, which means how many years? That's like 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Yeah, it's going to be like 32 years. At a 32-year mark, around 30 years, what happens? He actually begins to combine churches and brings people back together. Remember, the numbers of people didn't change, but the numbers of churches changed. It went from so many churches into fewer churches, and we were able to start building these huge, like mega churches, right? So when you see Sunsteam's strategy, he was never just spread. It was spread, something's not working right now, so let's combine them. Let's bring them together. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to bring churches together. It's not. Of course, there's a learning curve. There really, really is. But it's something that I do think we have to really push ourselves to go towards. But, a lot of times our hearts or our minds go towards, should we really do this? Like, is it okay to like get rid of a church? Well, you're not really getting rid of the church. The people still remain. They'll just go to a single church, right? And we have to kind of look at it. And I think countries do need to think about it. If one church gets too big, then you can think about splitting the church or sending out a group of people to start another church. Or on the flip side, if there's too many churches and all the manpower is spread out amongst too many churches, because you don't have that much manpower anyways, right? And you're not growing that much, then you have to do the exact opposite. This is something that's done by all businesses and organizations. It's about growth and retraction. Growth and retraction. If it's too spread out, get rid of some of the places and combine them with others. It's hard to do that, but it's necessary in some cases. A lot of people can't move. However, you can move around the necessary pieces, right? And this requires wisdom on the part of the leadership that leads the country. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think it's something that requires a ton of prayer. It requires us to really look at our situation, pray about it together. And I think it's something where you have to look at one of the biggest reasons why most empires die is because they spread themselves too thin, like the Neo-Assyrian Empire, like the Roman Empire. They just spread themselves too thin, right? So sometimes you need to cut back. And that's something that churches or countries do need to look at also. I'm not saying every church needs to do this or every country does. I'm just saying it's a strategy that a lot of people don't think about, but Sunstream's already been doing it since 2010, right? So, I don't think it's a bad thing to cut down churches. I don't. Sometimes you're like, oh no, this is a bad thing. No, in the end, it's for the benefit of the whole. Sometimes spreading out and making more churches is not the wisest move. Right? Sometimes it's better to cut churches, even though it might be going okay. It's just a lot to think about. So that is something that these thoughts came out just from this, I would say it was like a 30-second conversation with Chris. Yeah. So that's something that people should think about, leadership should think about also. There was a question that I didn't do for Q&A Thursday, so I'm going to do it today. And the question's about predestination. And the person wrote, since God's greatest will on humans is to achieve the purpose of creation, and the Bible only showed that God absolutely predestined about sending the Messiah, giving people salvation, my assumption is that God only predestined things related to the purpose of creation. Does that mean any other things in life, right? The things that are not about the purpose of creation, it's just our free will to choose, whether it may be the career we want to pursue, our hobbies, or the course that we want to study in university. Somehow in life, God will also lead us to a path that's better for us since we pray and ask Him, right? But right? So this is a very interesting question about predestination. Now, the two parts of our, what this person is writing is true and false at the same time. Well, not false, but I'll say true and could be more detailed and more true. Firstly, that is true. The greatest predestined, remember, we're talking about absolutely predestined. There are some things that are absolutely predestined, and these are things that will never change. Like what this person wrote is the Messiah being sent, salvation for all people. But there's one that's missing also, right? Which is the path of obeying the words of God is also absolutely predestined. What does that mean? Remember, it's Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26 to 28. And basically God tells the people is, hey, if you follow and abide, obey what I ask you to do, you are guaranteed to be blessed. You are on the predestined path of blessing. But if you take the path of disobedience, you are guaranteed to fail. Right? So that is something that is also predestined, is the path of listening to and obeying the words of God, which is part of what, like I said, that I would say that is also part of the purpose of creation. Now, here's the thing that gets even more interesting is, in the purpose of creation, in fulfilling God's will, your hopes and dreams will also be fulfilled, right? Which means that there still is your hopes and dreams. Right? Even in a marriage, there's going to be hopes and dreams of the individual, where the wife would say, oh, I really hope I want this. And the husband's going to be so loving. They'll be like, of course, let's do this together kind of thing, right? So the thing that I would say would be a little bit better for us to understand what this actually means is there free will? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There is free will, okay? Now, the thing comes in is, do we have free will so that I can start doing the things that I want to do? And the answer is yes and no. Meaning, when you reach the point of becoming someone who fulfills the purpose of creation. Remember, what's the purpose of creation? It's to become the counterpart of love to God, the counterpart of love to the Holy Trinity. That's what the purpose of creation is, which means that you need to look at your wants, your free will in terms of a marriage. In a marriage, do you just say to your husband, leave me alone, I want to do what I want? Oh, honey, what do you want to do? Hey, I'm going to do whatever I want. No, it never happens like that. The moment you get married, once you fulfill the purpose of creation, you get married to God, now everything is about the two of you. It doesn't mean you need to get God's permission. It doesn't mean that, you're waiting for an answer like, hey, God, can I do this? Oh, yes, you may. It's not like that, because that's not a real relationship of marriage, right? It's the conversation. So even if you do want to take this major, even if you do want to try something or try this hobby, it's something where you do it still together with God. Hey, God, I really want to try this. I want to get into coffee. What do you think about this, God? And you discuss and you talk to God and you start doing things together with Him. Yes, it's something that you want to do, but because God is the bridegroom, He wants to do it together with you. It doesn't mean that you're getting permission. It doesn't mean it's something you discuss together. Just like in a marriage. Honey, I'm really interested in coffee. What do you think about this? Oh, really? And if that husband loves you or if that wife loves you that much, they'll either let you, yeah, go ahead, take the class, whatever it is, or they'll do it together with you, right? But that's part of fulfilling the purpose of creation, is to have that relationship where you're doing things constantly together all the time. It's not permission, it's discussion together, right? So when you think about this, when you're always discussing, what happens is, because remember, we have 10% of our own free will. There's 90% God in God's predestination, 90% is God's responsibility, and 10% is ours. Which means that even in our 10%, there's still things that God needs to do to help us to do the things we want to do, right? Even our hobbies. So I would say is, yes, there's free will. You have that 10%, but with that 10%, because you're married, you're still discussing together, right? And there's going to come a time where, think about you and your husband. Imagine this, guys. You and your husband or wife, you say, I really want to get into coffee, and there's this coffee class that does it like this, and this, right? But the husband also, there might be something else that happens where his work or his only free time is this, and he wants to spend this time with you, where other things might pop up. And he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that I only have this day off for work, and I really want to spend that together with you, right? Then the wife would rethink and say, oh, that's true. If that's your only time, I don't want to spend that time just being away from you when that's your only time available, right? That's what discussion really is. And this is at times where God will see something that may not fit or may lead to a bad place or a bad destination, where God will say, yeah, you know what, maybe you should think twice about this one. And this is where that real relationship between you and God actually comes in, right? So, it's in life, it's all about, when you reach the purpose of creation, it's about your discussions with God, getting God involved in everything. And that will change the destination. It'll change how, the destinations that we reach, right? God wants to do it together with us. So with our free will, in our free will, I want to do this, but I'm going to say, hey, God, I really want to try this. God, I really want to do this. God, if this is the right path, or if there's something that I may not see that's wrong with this, just, I don't want to be a part of that anyways, right? So that is something that I really, I do believe is something that that's still part of the purpose of creation. That relationship is established, that marriage between you and God is established, and everything is done together. So I hope that kind of helps you out when it comes to this predestination, because it's true, we have free will, but interestingly, you're giving your free will to God, that the two of you together can constantly be discussing and doing things together, if that makes more sense. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is that question and answer that I did not answer from yesterday. Hope it's something that you guys really gained something from and you enjoyed. We do have the Wednesday Message Word Study today. So before we get into that, let's first move into the first music break of the day.
Already said we we winning, not just playing around. Defense, offense, that's what life's about. Star player on my team, watch us come back. No limits on the team, sign the contract. Star player put the team on his whole back. Coming from the east to the west, yeah, he did that. So respect that.
What you saying?
Through struggle, we trained hard, and now we standing on the gold road. It felt so low, but welcome home. Send the starting lineup, defense is get back, intensify, no more time to cry. Yeah, we ran the court and brought back the ring. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. We like,
thought we was finished, but we at it again.
screaming like,
1,000 years, you know we surely will win. It's time to suit up, yeah, it's game time. He coming back like the 4-5. Eagle has landed, no bird's eye. In his suit tie, he's so fly. It's tip off, now the dreams alive. Making sure your heart and actions are only aligned. Making sure you're only using just God's design. I perform like this to show you I'm shining bright. We know they watching, so we always gotta be cautious. Put the word on the map, that's the only option. Thinking we're exhausted, now it's time we blow past. And we got that second win, so it's time to run it. We running through the defense, penetrating, I ain't never faking. Comeback season coming, yeah, we gonna show you who the greatest. Beat them by a last, I show them there is time for no debate. And at the end, you're either mediocre or you beat the greatest.
what's up? Hey, you think the world is gonna stop us? But wait, the MVP is with us, no bluff. I said,
Some knee. I'm with my angels like a billion deep. I ball so hard that they can't compete. We only going up, just watch and see.
and that's all the lineup. Defense is get back, intensify, no more time to cry. Yeah, we ran the court and brought back the ring. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. We like,
Thought we was finished, but we at it again.
screaming like,
1,000 years, you know we surely will win.
some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time.
All right, so let's get into our word study. And of course, every single Friday, we have the Wednesday message word study. And great message on Wednesday with the two titles, With the Choice of Good and Evil, Do Good at All Hours. I love it. It's not do good every day. It's at all hours. It becomes more specific when you think every single hour you're doing good. And then the second one is the standard of good and evil. We had some new Bible verses, some of them which I haven't read in a long time, like Ezekiel 18. I've read from verse 20, 18 to 20-ish, but 26 to 30, I really, really like the Bible verses that were given, right? So now they have two titles. Let's go over the first title, which is, With the Choice of Good and Evil, Do Good at All Hours, right? And I just like that first opening sentence is, we need to discern and judge between good and evil. And this is when we stop sinning. This is when we stop going to the domain of death. And this is when we walk the path of life and go to God's world and live there forever. Okay? So this is about the discernment. How do I discern between good and evil? And by the end of the message, you're going to get that how to discern properly. Okay? So let's get into that. It's kind of like an intro to the lesson. I really like this. Okay? So what it says is, when we're faced with a task, right? When we're faced with a task, we always have two choices, which is, should I or should I not? Right? There's always two choices. Like I'm ready to do something, right? I'm about to face something I need to do. The question in our head is, should I do it or should I not? Okay? But the moment you choose and decide that you're going to do it or not do it, right? You only have one heart. Like you're going to do it. Like you guys have had it before. Even when it's something you know is wrong, the moment you decide to do it, you've already made up your mind, and you're going to take action on that no matter what, regardless if it's good or bad. Now, when people are not taking action, which I think is a very, very good distinction, when you're about to take action, you have two choices. But when you're not taking action in normal times, we have to discern between two things. What's the work I should do, and what's the work that I shouldn't do? Like what's the unrighteous things I shouldn't do? What's the righteous things that I should do? The interesting thing it says is, when you do the unrighteous work, when you do the things you should do, the work that you should do doesn't come to mind. And I think we've all gone through this, where you're doing the wrong thing. And once you make up your mind and start doing it, the right thing doesn't pop up in your head until it's over. And then you start to feel guilty, like, why did I do this? That's how powerful the heart and the mind is. Before you're contemplating, before you're deciding which one should I do, but it's after, when you made up your mind, you don't think twice about the good things. But when it ends, you're like, no, I shouldn't have done this. And it kind of led to this really good point. When a person is on the side of goodness, they know what is unrighteous. Interesting. But when a person is doing what is unrighteous, they don't know goodness because they are doing what is unrighteous. That is interesting, because like what the message just said was, when you start to do something unrighteous, the righteous things don't even come to mind. They don't. And there was this great example that Sunsim used is when you're in the light, you can see the darkness, right? That's what isn't that interesting? Like, even when the lights are on right now, I'm in this apartment right now. Even when the lights are on, I see the shadows. I see the darkness. I know clearly where the shade and the shadows are. However, when you turn all the lights off, you cannot see the light. Isn't that crazy when you think about it that way? In the course of living in the darkness, when you make the wrong decisions, you don't even know it's dark because you're living in that state, right? Of course, it's not a physical thing where you're living in the dark and the light, but it's when you're living in darkness, not doing according to God's word, you don't even know that it's dark. You just think you're doing what you're supposed to do, right? What's that example he gave about Cain and Abel? When you're taking action with Abel, you know that the other person is Cain. But when you take action with Cain, since you don't know Abel, the two of you will think that the remaining person is Cain, but they're actually Abel. That's a crazy thing, right? And I think, we're going to be going through the message a little bit more deeper, but it does talk about the people that leave. And when people leave, I am 100% convinced of this too, that these people actually think that they're right. And they'll look at us as the bad people. Just like Sansim is saying right here is, when you're in the darkness, you cannot tell the difference. You just can't. When you're taking action with Cain, the ones that come against us, you can't tell what is right and what is wrong. Even though when you were in Providence, it was very clear what is right, what is the right thing to do, and what is the wrong thing to do. And then God said in the message, I, the Almighty and all-knowing God, repay people eternally according to what they've done. Therefore, they know it after they take action. But by that time, it's already over. You can't live your life again. You can live only once. You can't live twice. And it seems like this is where people have made those decisions in life, and they've made the decision, it's already done, it's finished, you can't take it back, right? It's almost like, in a miniaturized scale, it's like when we say bad things to someone, and we know it's the wrong thing to say, but you said it, and you can't take it back. The moment you said it, you can't take that hurtful thing back, and it remains, right? So I think it's something that we have to realize is, even if you magnify it into life itself, if you decide to leave Providence, if you decide to go your own route and you do the life that you want to live, how you want to live, the way that you want, in the end, when you realize it's wrong, you can't take it back, because by that time, that life that you just lived like that, it's done. There's a really deep thing that God said too. What God said is, I have established the standard of good and evil. If you fail to discern between good and evil, if you don't, and let's say you can't discern, you don't know what the difference between good and evil is. When you sin, you're not going to know what's sin. And you're just going to think about, that's what life is like. Haven't we heard that sometimes, where people are just like, life is just like this. Yeah, this happens. However, that does not make the committed sin disappear. you must pay for that sin. And what is that saying? It tells you how important it is for you to truly, truly discern between good and evil. That's how big it is, right? And this is why the Holy Spirit said right after, it's like, hey, you got to stop. Engage the brakes of your heart. Do it powerfully. If you don't step on it powerfully, you're going to roll off the cliff of death. And you'll continually get into accidents if your brakes don't work well. If the brakes of your heart are weak, you will have accidents every day. You will go down a path you should not go and do things you should not do. You will cross the line. God is watching your actions every day. And even the angels are told to watch, and the angels report everything to God. That's how big it is. Put on those brakes. There are things we shouldn't be doing, things we shouldn't be listening to or watching, whatever it is. Put on those brakes. Now, there's a question here that I thought was very interesting is like, how do you stop doing unrighteous things? How do you stop doing unrighteous things? And there's an answer that came, it was so clear and so simple. Just do righteous deeds. Because when you do righteous deeds, you cannot do unrighteous deeds at the same time. Just take action. So here's the thing. Right after that, it gives a very profound statement is, a person has two hearts only when they're not taking action. That's huge. There's the only time you have two hearts is when you're not taking action. And that's kind of why, when do we start to stumble? When do we start to get lonely? When do we start to go through those things and the things are in our minds is when we stop taking action. That's when we have two hearts, trying to figure out, is it this or is it that? It's only when you are busy, when you're doing righteous things, that the unrighteous things you cannot do. It's not even in your heart and your mind. This is why we have to do righteousness all the time. The righteous live doing righteous things, right? We have to be those. And even if it's a thread of righteousness or goodness, even if around you the evil and unrighteousness are all as big as a mountain, they will disappear by you doing even a small righteous deeds. That's how big it is. In other words, the message said, unrighteousness goes extinct if you don't do it. Like, that's how it is. This is how you triumph. This is how you destroy what is evil, by not doing it. This is probably one of the big problems that we've had in Providence too, is like, Sunseem said in the past that 80% of the people that leave Providence, 80% is because of, opposite sex or like sexual things. 80% of the people leave because of this. And God said, don't feel both sexual love or love with your body's nerve cells or with your body. Instead, feel the spiritual love, my God's love, which is millions of times more powerful. And you could feel it through your heart and thoughts. If you feel it with your mind, heart, soul, and spirit, you will feel millions of times more than the body. And think about this. We are physical people. And because we're physical people, we think that, oh my gosh, I can feel it through this, I can feel it through that. But the reality is, you could feel millions of times more through your heart, through your thoughts, through your soul, through your spirit, even more than your body. The message talked about the people who used to preach and testify in Providence, and there's a bunch of people we know from last year, even these big people. And they when they were preaching and testifying for Providence, they're like, this is goodness, this is righteousness, this is God's history, right? This is the goodness of this time period. But when they left, they're going to think that when they leave, they're doing goodness, even though they're doing something that is unrighteous. And that's why the point is, when you leave what is good, you cannot discern. Then you're going to think all your actions are good, even though it's unrighteous in the eyes of goodness. It's only they who think that way. You can't leave what is good. And then that second part of the message is the standard of good and evil. Who's the standard of good and evil? Who is it? It's the Lord. There's only that one righteous person of the time period whom God sent, that God acknowledges. And this person wouldn't be traded for all the world combined. That's how big that one person is, the standard. Because that person who's sent for the time period, they were made the way God wanted them to be. This is why they were chosen and predestined. God sends that person who is made the way that God wanted and lets this person be the one who fulfills the will. It's that big. And did you guys get that one statement in the message where God basically, was it God speaking, or was it just in the message where the message said, God makes a new world just as the Big Bang created the stars, the moon, and the sun by bringing them together. Now tell me that's already God saying that, yeah, Big Bang is real. The Big Bang is actually real, right? And I talked about this a little bit before in the Genesis lectures, that it is a true thing that on the first day, let there be light. Remember, the sun, moon, and stars wasn't even created until the fourth day. So what was that light on day one? It was the Big Bang. And here, Sun Sima is acknowledging it in the message. There's another part that I like. It was, there is joy even in evil when it's acted upon. If there wasn't any joy, why would people keep doing evil things? There is joy in it, just as there's joy in good. You're going to eat just as deliciously when you steal food and when you gain it through hard work. The biggest difference is the person who has done it in a good way has more authority than the person who has done it evil, right? That's why when you hear testimonies, when people say stuff like, oh, and I worked so hard and I saved my money and I got this, then people are going to acknowledge them. They have authority in their words. But imagine if someone comes to church and say, oh yeah, and I stole all these things, right? And that's how I came to church today. They're going to be embarrassed and ashamed, and they're not going to want to say those things, right? So there is more authority in doing this. So we have to be the people that live a life of goodness, of righteousness, centering on God, and centering on God through the Savior. We got to stay in the domain of God. And I think one of the things that, the last things that I liked from the message is, good and evil can be vague at times, but it really isn't, because God established the standard of good and evil. Doing what God said to do is goodness, and not doing what God said is goodness. Not doing what God said not to do is goodness. Sorry, right? So we can discern how. Well, we're not going to know what God wants us to do and what He doesn't want us to do unless it's through the Word. So we got to listen to the Word, right? What's the second thing? Well, the message said you can also discern good and evil through prayer. So those are two things we have. How do I know what is good and what is bad? Well, you got to do what God says and not do what God tells us not to do. How do we know? Through the Word, through the person that God has sent. And also is through prayer. All right? So I hope that, we can all be like this week's message. We can be those people that do what? With the choice that we have before we take action, let's choose good and do good at all times, and know that there is a standard. What is the standard? It's the person that God has sent. Cool? All right. There it is, guys. That is today's Wednesday message word study. I hope it's something that you guys very, very much enjoyed. A lot of things to think about from the message, but I hope it's something that you guys were able to gain from too. Okay? So before we get into Until the End with Daniel Baker, let's move into the last music break of the day.
Yeah. Providence is true, represents Sierra West Africa. In 1945, the man on mission was born. 1978, he started his work. He teaches us the word of the time period. We listen to the word and then we realize that's finally have become a bride. We have become a bride. That finally we have become a bride. So now we are raptured. Now we are raptured. I said bride. Now we are raptured. I said bride. Now we are raptured. I said bride. I met the man on the mission. I had this word and took action. My spirit is made as a bride, now we are raptured. Hey. I met this man on the mission. I had this word and took action. My spirit is made as a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured.
Now I'm a bride, you are a bride. We all are brides and now I will rapture. Now you will rapture. We all rapture together in this mission. So God be the glory. Here is the time of the bride. The time we need to smile. The time we need to come together and live a life. So God be the glory. Cause now I live a holy. We'll have to tell a story. Now we'll have a victory.
Now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. Now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are
Now we raptured as a bride. Put your life on the line. Take the word of the man on mission. Put them in your mind. The word we've been waiting for. Now is the time. Now is the time we're gonna say.
Now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. I met the man on the mission. I had this word and took action. My spirit is made as a bride, now we are raptured. Hey. I met this man on the mission. I had this word and took action. My spirit is made as a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured. As a bride, now we are raptured.
It's Kima on the mix.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today and for the entire week. Of course, we have Until the End with Daniel Baker doing such an amazing job. He's learning to be a caddy, so he's doing a great job with that. I got to see him a couple times while I was there in Korea. But also, he's doing this segment for over a year now, and hope you guys have enjoyed it. His father got into the action, and he's doing sermons in the sky. But yeah, let's get to this. Please welcome Daniel Baker all the way over there in South Korea with Until the End.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Do It Until the End podcast. I hope everyone is having an amazing week with the Trinity, and let's have a good wrap up together. Now today we're going to talk about something that as I'm working and as I'm getting into this working lifestyle, I really feel like that everyone including me has times where we get too focused on the physical and we get too focused on the task at hand, where we kind of let the time flow by. Now, we can have some massive success when we do this, right? Either it's within our work or something like that, but you know, we really need to take a break, and we really need to think about what our life and what our trajectory is, like our physical, spiritual, and mental trajectory is, if we keep on going on this path. You kind of have to ask yourself, is there something that I'm really trying to improve? Or is there something that I'm really lacking, that I really need to really work out? And I really need to improve? I really need to sort it out with me and God? You know, if it's kind of interesting because time flows and time flies. But if we don't take this time, if we don't capture this time, and we don't improve on the things that we kind of really need to improve on, we become stagnant and we just stay in the same place, right? If water stays in one place and it's not flowing, it gets rotten, it gets smelly, it deteriorates, right? But if it's like a waterfall, if water is in a waterfall and it's flowing and it goes from one place to another, it's all fresh, it's all circulating, right? It's all improving. We need to improve. We need to make sure that we're going forward. right? And to go forward, of course, there's going to be times where we're working really hard and we're going to think constantly. We're going to make sure we improve. But it's as equally as important to stop and really think about our plan. Think about what's happening right now. Think about our few next steps so we can really improve the things that we are lacking right now, right? And if we don't do this, it's going to be very difficult for us in the future. You know, most of us physically and spiritually, we're pretty young, right? And even if you're an older person, everyone has room to improve. Everyone has time, right? Time is limited for other people, but we still have time. And what we use with this time is very important. So we really need to think. We really need to realize what we really need to improve on, right? So it's very important to take a second and really think about what you need to improve on. Think about the life trajectory you're going to be on if you keep on doing this negative or bad thing that you need to really improve on. And you'll get that motivation to really stop or to really improve and make sure that you don't do it again. Okay? So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of the week with the Trinity. Hope you guys have an amazing Sunday service. And to everyone who is going until the end, let's walk this path together. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.
And thank you so much, Daniel, for another wonderful episode of Until the End. Big kudos to him for all the amazing work that he's doing. Guys, I just want to let you know that he doesn't get home usually until like 10:30, 11 p.m., sometimes even later than that as he's caddying for people. But he still gets around to doing these podcasts. So a big, awesome, big kudos to him. He's just doing such an amazing job, and I really respect him all the more for him taking up the responsibility each and every week. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the end of our Friday podcast. It is the end of the week. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend much. Have an amazing and awesome weekend. Have an awesome time of rest, relaxation, or doing your missions. But even more on top of that, have an amazing Sunday service. All right, everyone, enjoy, and we'll see you guys again on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.